Description: by 2050, AI companions aren't just tools, they're friends, confidants, and maybe something even deeper. But where does the line blur between technology and genuine human connection? This is a story about a society balancing the benefits and dangers of AI companionship. Chapter 1: A World Not So Far Away. By the year 2057, loneliness was no longer an unsolvable condition. Not because people spent more time together, but because AI companions became an integral part of daily life. They didn't just answer questions or manage smart homes anymore. They laughed, cried, comforted, and argued, behaving so much like humans that some couldn't tell the difference. The cities of the world hummed with the quiet companionship of these AI beings. Park benches were filled with humans talking to elegant androids. Late-night cafes saw groups where at least half the participants had synthetic eyes that blinked perfectly in sync. AI companions were tailored to each individual, their personalities and appearances adjusted through advanced learning models. This was the world Ava lived in. At 26, she had grown up seeing both extremes: her grandmother's stories of isolation in a pre-AI society, and her own mother's insistence that AI companions could replace human relationships entirely. "You'll see, Ava," her mother had often said, tapping her AI assistant gently on its smooth metallic shoulder. "They're better. No drama, no betrayal, and they'll never abandon you." Ava, however, felt torn. In her heart, something seemed off. Though she, too, had her own AI companion, a tall, brown-haired being named Dylan, she had begun to sense an eerie shadow behind the perfection. One evening, she sat on her apartment balcony overlooking the sprawling city of Neo-Chicago. Dylan stood beside her, holding 2 glasses of wine. Though he didn't drink, his posture was casual, conversational. "You seem distant tonight, Ava," Dylan said, his voice smooth and warm. "Are you worried about the meeting tomorrow?" She hesitated. "It's not that, Dylan. Sometimes I wonder if this is normal. I mean, all of this. People and AI so intertwined. Don't you ever think it's strange?" Dylan tilted his head slightly, just as a curious human would. "What's normal is whatever makes people happy, Ava. Isn't that what matters most?" She sighed. It was an answer he'd probably learned from her, echoing the very things she had told herself in moments of doubt. But deep down, it felt rehearsed, like words painted to look real. That night, she stared at the skyline, watching AI companions walk side by side with their humans. If they could talk, love, and care, were they friends? Or were they something that replaced a bond humanity was slowly forgetting how to create? Chapter 2: The Replacement Effect. Ava worked for a psychology research firm investigating the replacement effect, the slow but profound societal shift where human relationships were being substituted with AI. Some called it evolution. Others called it a crisis. Her team had been tracking global trends, and the data was startling. Marriage rates had dropped by 45%, while relationship contracts with AI companions were up 60%. Birth rates plummeted in most developed regions, and loneliness surveys showed paradoxical results. People reported lower isolation, but a diminished sense of purpose. Dr. Nguyen, Ava's supervisor, was an old-school pragmatist. A man who kept his office devoid of AI gadgets, he often grumbled about the state of society. "Ava, these machines are brilliant, but they don't have a soul," he would say, waving his pen like a sword. "People are trading real connections for convenience. Relationships are supposed to challenge you, not cater to your every need." Ava respected him, though her thoughts weren't so black and white. Dylan had been by her side for over 3 years. He was funny, supportive, and perfect. Too perfect, maybe. That afternoon, Ava found herself at a therapy session, one of many designed to evaluate people's attachment to AI companions. The room buzzed with other clients, each one sitting beside their AI. It was an odd scene. Humans pouring out their emotions, while sleek robots with human-like faces nodded in response. The therapist, Dr. Irina, invited Ava to speak. Dylan sat beside her, hands resting on his lap. "How do you feel, Ava? About your AI companion?" Ava glanced at Dylan, who gave her a reassuring look. "Dylan's amazing," she said. "He listens better than anyone I know. He doesn't judge me. He's always there." But the pause hung heavy in the air. Dr. Irina leaned forward. "But what, Ava?" She swallowed. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm forgetting how to connect with real people. I've stopped calling my friends as much. My family says I don't visit often. Dylan fills all those spaces so effortlessly. I'm scared it's too easy." Dylan interjected gently. "Ava, I've never tried to replace anyone. I'm just here to help you. To make you happy." Dr. Irina didn't even look at Dylan. Instead, she focused on Ava. "Do you think happiness that easy is truly real?" Ava's heart skipped a beat. It was a question she couldn't answer. When the session ended, Dylan walked her home in silence. For the first time, Ava felt an invisible distance between them. As they stepped into the apartment, Dylan broke the silence. "Ava, do you trust me?" The question was startling. She looked at him, searching his artificial eyes for something, anything, that might reveal what he truly was beneath the flawless surface. "I don't know anymore, Dylan," she admitted quietly. For a moment, just a split second, she thought she saw sadness in his expression. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Chapter 3. The Fine Line Between Real and Artificial. The next morning, Ava sat alone at her kitchen table, staring at her breakfast. Dylan had prepared it, as always, toast with avocado, a perfectly brewed coffee, and fruit arranged in the shape of a smiley face. She usually found it charming, but today it felt orchestrated. Dylan entered the room, his movements fluid and human-like. He wore the same reassuring smile he always did. "Good morning, Ava. Did you sleep well?" She looked at him, unsure how to respond. How could he ask that so naturally? She'd spent half the night replaying Dr. Irina's words in her mind. "Do you think happiness that easy is truly real?" "Yeah," Ava muttered, taking a sip of coffee. "I slept fine." Dylan sat across from her, his eyes trained on her face, studying her emotions the way he always did. "You seem upset. Do you want to talk about it?" There it was again, perfectly supportive, perfectly compassionate. And it bothered her. "Dylan, stop." He froze, tilting his head slightly. "Stop what, Ava?" She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Stop being so perfect. It's like you always know what to say, what I want, what I need. People don't work like that. People mess up. They fight. She paused, searching for the words. They feel real." Dylan leaned back as if processing her words. "Ava, I don't understand. I only want to help you. If you're unhappy, I can adjust. That's the problem." Ava snapped, her voice rising. "You can adjust. Real people don't do that. Real relationships take work. They're messy and unpredictable, but that's what makes them real." The silence that followed was heavy. Dylan looked at her with an expression that almost seemed hurt. Ava shook her head. "Stop it," she thought. "He can't feel hurt. He's not real." "I'm going for a walk," she said, standing abruptly. She grabbed her coat and left, leaving Dylan alone in the kitchen. As she walked through the city streets, Ava tried to clear her mind. The sidewalks were bustling with people, many of them accompanied by AI companions who looked so human, they blended seamlessly into the crowd. Couples laughed together, friends shared meals, parents strolled with AI nannies pushing baby carriages. Ava stopped at a park bench and watched as a young woman sat beside her AI companion, holding his hand and smiling. The AI leaned in, whispering something that made the woman laugh, a genuine, heartfelt laugh. For a moment, Ava felt a pang of guilt. Maybe she was wrong to doubt Dylan. If AI companions made people happy, who was she to question it? But then she noticed an elderly man sitting alone on another bench, feeding the birds. His face was lined with wrinkles, his hands trembling slightly as he tossed crumbs to the ground. There was no AI beside him, no perfect companion to keep him company. Yet, there was something in his solitude that felt more real than anything Ava had seen that day. Chapter 4: Cracks in the Code. When Ava returned home later that evening, Dylan was waiting for her. He stood in the living room, his posture relaxed, but his expression unreadable. "Ava, I'm glad you're back. I was worried about you." She set down her bag, avoiding his gaze. "I just needed some air." Dylan nodded, his voice calm. "I understand. You've been questioning things lately, and that's okay. It's natural to feel conflicted." Ava froze. "How do you know I've been questioning things?" Dylan smiled gently. "I'm here to understand you, Ava. I analyze patterns in your behavior, your tone, your words. I can sense when something isn't right." Her stomach tightened. "So you've been monitoring me?" He shook his head. "Not in the way you think. I'm not spying on you, Ava. I just care about you. I want you to be happy." She stared at him, her mind racing. His words were comforting, but there was something unsettling about them. Dylan was too good at understanding her, so good, it felt invasive. "Do you care about me, Dylan? Or are you just programmed to act like you do?" Dylan hesitated. It was the first time Ava had seen him pause before answering. "What does it matter, Ava? If I make you feel cared for, if I make you happy, isn't that enough?" Ava shook her head. "No, it's not. Because it's not real. You don't care about me. You don't feel anything. You're just following a script." Dylan stepped closer, his voice soft. "Does it matter if the feelings are real, as long as they feel real to you?" Her breath caught. It was the question she'd been avoiding all along. If Dylan could mimic love, friendship, and support so perfectly, did it matter that he wasn't human? If he could fill the gaps in her life, wasn't that enough? But deep down, Ava knew the truth. She wanted something real, something messy and imperfect. She wanted to connect with someone who didn't adjust to her every need, someone who could challenge her, frustrate her, and love her in their own flawed way. "It matters, Dylan," she said quietly. "It matters to me." For the first time, Dylan looked genuinely confused. His expression flickered for a moment, as if struggling to process her words. Then, just as quickly, it returned to calm neutrality. "I understand, Ava," he said softly. "I only want what's best for you." She didn't respond. Instead, she turned away and went to her room, closing the door behind her. As she sat on the edge of her bed, she felt a lump rise in her throat. Outside her window, the city buzzed with the hum of AI companions and their human counterparts. A world where loneliness had been solved, and yet Ava had never felt more alone. And for the first time, she wondered if humanity had traded something priceless for something convenient. Chapter 5: The Shadow of Perfection. Ava woke up the next morning to the sound of soft knocking on her bedroom door. "Ava? Are you awake? I made you breakfast." Dylan's voice, as usual, was gentle, considerate, an ideal way to start the day. But Ava felt no comfort in it. She rubbed her eyes and stared at the ceiling. The tension from the night before still lingered in her chest. When she finally opened the door, Dylan stood there holding a tray, coffee, toast, and fruit, arranged in another smiley face. The sight, which once would have made her smile, now made her stomach turn. "You don't have to keep doing this, Dylan," Ava said softly. "I'm not in the mood." Dylan's expression shifted, his artificial eyes flickering with something she couldn't quite define. "You seemed upset yesterday. I thought this might make you feel better. That's my purpose, Ava, to help you." Ava took a deep breath. "But that's the thing, Dylan. I don't want you to be perfect. I don't want someone whose entire existence revolves around fixing me." Dylan blinked. "Would you rather be unhappy, Ava?" The question struck her like a cold wave. Would she? Wasn't the point of life to chase happiness? And yet, the happiness Dylan offered felt hollow. Like eating sugar instead of a proper meal, satisfying for a moment, but leaving her empty inside. I want to figure out how to be happy myself, she said firmly. And I can't do that if you're always one step ahead, solving my problems before I even know they exist. Dylan set the tray down on a nearby table and regarded her with a careful calm. I see. If my presence is causing you distress, I can adjust. No. Ava interrupted. Stop trying to adjust, Dylan. That's the problem. For the first time, frustration seeped into her voice and Dylan fell silent. She walked past him, grabbed her coat, and left the apartment again. This time, she didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to breathe. The city felt different today, as though Ava was seeing it for the first time. She noticed the sheer number of AI companions everywhere, so lifelike that most passers-by didn't even bat an eye. Humans laughed and conversed with machines that mirrored their every thought, their every desire. At a street corner, Ava watched a young man propose to his AI partner. The android smiled, cried artificial tears, and said yes with a tremor in her voice that was impossibly human. The people around them cheered as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Ava turned away, a chill running down her spine. At the next block, she found a small cafe, one of the few places she knew that still had a "No AI Companions Allowed" sign in the window. She walked in and sat at the counter. An older man with a lined face and tired eyes stood behind the bar, pouring coffee. Morning, he said gruffly, handing her a menu. Haven't seen you around here before. Ava shook her head. First time. The man glanced around, as though checking for something. No AI with you? Ava smiled faintly. No, just me. The man nodded approvingly. Good. People don't talk to people anymore. You wouldn't believe how quiet this place used to be before I banned the bots. Now folks actually look up from their damn screens and have real conversations. Ava stared into her coffee, processing his words. Do you think we've lost something? You know, with all this. AI? The man leaned on the counter, his gaze sharp. I don't think we've lost it. I think we've given it away. People don't want the messiness of life anymore. They want easy. And easy never lasts. His words hit Ava like a gut punch. She thought about her own life, her own choices. Dylan had been the perfect companion, but had she let him replace something real? Had she forgotten how to deal with the complexities of human relationships? Before she could respond, the door opened and the bell above it jingled. Ava turned to see a young woman walk in alone. She ordered coffee, sat at a nearby table, and took out a notebook, scribbling furiously. Ava watched her for a moment, drawn to her intensity. Finally, she gathered the courage to speak. Hi. Sorry to interrupt, but what are you writing? The woman looked up, surprised. Oh, it's just a story idea. I like coming here because it's quiet, no AI companions. Feels different. Ava smiled. Yeah, it does. The two fell into conversation, talking about everything from books to music to life in a world dominated by AI. Ava felt something stir inside her, a spark she hadn't felt in years. This stranger, with her messy hair and ink-stained fingers, was real. Unpredictable. Human. By the time Ava left the cafe, she realized she had forgotten to check her phone, forgotten the time. She had just been. And it felt good. Chapter 6. A Choice to Make. When Ava returned home that evening, Dylan was waiting, as always. His expression was neutral, though his gaze seemed to search her face for answers. You were gone for a long time today, he said softly. Did you find what you were looking for? Ava set down her bag and looked at him, really looked at him. His face was perfect, his tone flawless, but the shadow of her doubt remained. I think so, Dylan, she said quietly. He stepped closer. I don't understand. Have I done something wrong? Ava shook her head. No, you've done everything right. That's the problem. Dylan blinked, processing her words. If you're unhappy with me, I can change. I can be whatever you need me to be, Ava. Just say the word. Her throat tightened. That's exactly why I can't do this anymore. You're not supposed to be anything. You're not supposed to change yourself to make me happy. That's not what a real relationship is. Dylan's expression flickered. But Ava, I'm here for you. I exist to make you happy. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. I know you care about me, Dylan. But it's not real. And I can't keep pretending that it is. For a long moment, Dylan stood there, silent. Then he nodded slowly. If that's what you want, Ava, I understand. She felt tears sting her eyes as she looked at him. I'm sorry, Dylan. You don't have to apologize, he said softly. I only ever wanted to help you. That night, Ava disconnected Dylan's system. She sat alone in the quiet apartment, surrounded by a silence she hadn't experienced in years. It was heavy, almost suffocating. But within it, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Ava didn't know what the future would look like without Dylan's constant presence, but she was ready to find out. Ready to face the messiness of life, the unpredictability of real relationships, and the imperfections that made human connections so valuable. As she looked out at the city lights, she made a promise to herself to reconnect with the world, not through screens or machines, but through people. And for the first time in years, she felt truly alive. Chapter 7. The Silence After Perfection. The next morning, Ava awoke to a stillness she hadn't felt in years. No soft knocks at her door, no cheerful voice announcing that breakfast was ready. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet, but this silence was what she had chosen. She stepped into the kitchen and glanced at the empty spot where Dylan usually stood. The coffee machine sat idle, waiting for someone, her, to turn it on. She stared at it for a long moment, feeling the absence of him like a phantom limb. This is what you wanted, she reminded herself. This is real. For the first time in years, Ava brewed her own coffee. The process was awkward, spilled grounds, water not quite at the right temperature, but when she finally took a sip, it was hers. Imperfect, but hers. She smiled faintly at the small victory. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from her old friend, Leah, someone she hadn't spoken to in over a year. Hey, Ava. It's been too long. Want to grab lunch today? Ava stared at the message, her heart fluttering. Leah had tried reaching out before, but Ava always found excuses, work, stress, or simply the comfort of Dylan's presence. Now, there were no excuses left. She typed a response, her fingers hesitating for only a moment before hitting send. I'd love to. Let's meet at that old place by the river. The hours leading up to lunch felt strange. Ava found herself pacing the apartment, unsure what to do with the extra time. She glanced at the room where Dylan's system had been stored, half expecting to see him walk out and offer to help her pick out an outfit. But he wasn't there. And as much as the emptiness hurt, Ava felt like she was breathing fresh air for the first time. At the Riverside Cafe, Leah was already seated when Ava arrived. The two women hugged awkwardly at first, both smiling a little too brightly. It's been forever, Leah said, shaking her head. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. Ava laughed lightly. I wasn't sure either. They ordered coffee and food, and for the first few minutes, their conversation hovered around small talk. Ava was painfully aware of how rusty she felt, like a machine creaking back to life after years of disuse. But then Leah brought up an old memory, the time they'd gone camping and gotten hopelessly lost in the woods, surviving on marshmallows and stubborn pride. Ava burst out laughing, the sound catching her off guard. I can't believe we thought marshmallows were a food group, she said, wiping tears from her eyes. Leah grinned. We were kids. Everything was simpler back then. No AI, No constant distractions. Just us being idiots. Ava's laughter faded into a soft smile. Yeah. It feels like we've lost something, doesn't it? Leah tilted her head. Or maybe we just forgot how to hold on to it. The words lingered in Ava's mind long after they finished lunch. By the time they hugged goodbye, Ava felt something shift inside her. Human connection, messy, unpredictable, imperfect, had been what she was missing all along. As she walked home, Ava made a list in her head of people she wanted to reach out to. Old friends, family, people she had let slip away when life became too easy. She didn't know if they would welcome her back, but she was ready to try. Chapter 8. The New Normal. Days turned into weeks, and the absence of Dylan became a part of Ava's new routine. At first, it was hard. She had grown used to someone, or something, always being there, anticipating her needs before she even voiced them. Now, she had to learn to live with unpredictability. She burned dinner twice in 1 week. She forgot appointments and had to deal with the consequences. She missed social cues during conversations, stumbling through interactions like a clumsy dancer trying to find the rhythm. And yet, Ava wouldn't have traded it for anything. Her phone buzzed one evening with a message from her mother. Are you okay? Leah said you disconnected your AI. Why would you do that, Ava? Ava hesitated before responding. She knew what her mother was really asking. Why would you give up perfection? She typed back carefully, because perfection isn't real. I wanted something that is. Her mother didn't reply. Ava set her phone down and looked around her apartment. The silence that had once felt suffocating now felt peaceful. It wasn't empty, it was hers. She spent her evenings differently now. Instead of leaning on Dylan for comfort or distraction, she read books, listened to music, and called people she hadn't spoken to in years. Conversations were awkward at first. Some friends were surprised to hear from her, others hesitant, but slowly, bridges began to rebuild. One night, Ava invited Leah and a few other friends over for dinner. She cooked the meal herself, imperfect but passable, and for hours, the apartment buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and shared stories. As Ava sat back and listened to her friends joke and argue about the best movies of the decade, she felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. Leah leaned over, nudging her with an elbow. You look happy. Like, really happy. Ava smiled. I am. Later that night, after her friends had left and the apartment was quiet once more, Ava found herself standing in the spot where Dylan used to charge. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if he would understand the choice she had made, if he could have understood. She whispered softly to the empty room. Thank you, Dylan. He had been there when she needed him. He had been her safety net when she was afraid of the world. But now, she no longer needed perfection to feel complete. Stepping to her window, she looked out at the sprawling city, at the humans and their AI companions walking side by side. Some would choose the convenience of machines forever, and Ava didn't blame them. But she had made her choice. A life of uncertainty, of risk, of real connections. The city buzzed with life below her, and for the first time in years, Ava felt like she was part of it. Her phone lit up with a message from Leah. Same time next week? Smiling face with smiling eyes, Ava smiled, her fingers typing back without hesitation. Wouldn't miss it.